Welcome to Giant Cocktails, a podcast where two lifelong fans talk about the San Francisco Giants while drinking homemade cocktails. Now, here are your hosts, Ben and Matthew Henry.
Welcome back to another episode of Giant Cocktails. I am your host, Ben Henry, alongside my brother, the resigned Matthew Henry. How you doing, Matthew? Wait, what's that? Oh, I've been traded again? Okay, all right. Well, yes, resigned. The Giants are toast, Ben. The Giants are toast. Welcome back, Ben.
Wait, am I Ben again?
You are.
Oh, okay.
I was traded a second time, so I can only play,
right.
Be Ben and Matthew for, unless I was in the
right. Well, I was confused because I didn't get traded. I got demoted back to
I got AAA.
Yeah, I was demoted back to TikTok.
You got demoted back to Giants Talk.
No,
that's where you got demoted.
Oh, that's like San Jose, man.
Well, the reason we're doing this bit, folks, is because something unprecedented is about to happen on Monday. Danny Jansen, catcher for the Boston Red Sox, is going to appear for two teams in the same game on Monday. And what's really weird is he's actually going to appear in the same at bat. So just a number of months ago when he was a member of the Blue Jays, the game was stopped in the middle of the game because of rain. He was actually up to bat when that happened. And then since then, he got traded to the Red Sox. And now he's going to be the catcher when game resumes for the Red Sox. And the batter, who was supposed to be him, obviously is going to be pinch hit for, and somebody else will be batting for him, but he'll be playing for both teams in the same game. Make it make sense, Ben.
Well, not only that, Matthew, he's going to be in the same at bat as the catcher and the hitter for the first time. And so you were the first podcaster to both be Matthew and Ben in a Giant Cocktails. But not only that, you were the first person to be both Matthew and Ben in the opening to Giant Cocktails.
It is a historical event,
right?
Here too.
Right,
yes.
and that's why that what happened at the beginning happened. I know it feels like maybe like who's running this podcast, Farhan Zaidi, but no. It was a little bit. We were just being a little funny. We were just being a little funny because folks.
That's all we got.
It's all we got left. Now. It's all we got left. And honestly, I'm not feeling very funny right now. I'm feeling a little
salty.
I'm feeling a little salty. I'm feeling a little verklempt. I'm feeling a little lightheaded. I'm feeling all kinds of things, Matthew, because yes, you're resigned. We're both resigned. I think as Giants fans, we have to accept the fact that even though it's not mathematically over, it's over.
It's over.
And
it only took us 132 games to figure it out. Then.
But there were, the funny thing is, Matthew, like all things, there were clues along the way.
There were, exactly. This is why I'm saying I don't understand like how it took me 132 games when what's the definition of insanity when you do the same thing over and over again? We've been seeing the same thing over and over again, and yet we wanted to believe that something else was magically going to appear.
Well, Matthew, I mean the thing is that we are fans. And fans are fanatics. And a fanatic is kind of crazy. And this is a fan podcast. So I think, quite honestly, it kind of makes sense how they kept pulling us back in. They kept pulling us back in. In many ways, like Danny Jansen, we were in two places at once. We were in fantasy land and we were in reality. Which brings me to my icebreaker question of the day.
Okay.
My icebreaker. My icebreaker
icebreaker?
question of the day.
Shoot away.
Matthew, if you could be in two places at once, where would you be?
Oh, see, there are probably some really good answers to this, but I haven't given it much thought. The immediate thought that comes to my mind is I don't think I'd want to be in the game at the same time. I think it'd be really fun to be in both dugouts at the same time. Like I think that you could just I could just be a fly on the wall for both dugouts and just kind of see I could just picture Melvin talking trash about the manager of the other team,
right,
and the other team's manager talking trash about Melvin. And
yeah,
I think that would be fun. I'd love to just be there two places at once that way for sure. How about you?
Wow, I wasn't going to go that direction at all. Okay.
I'm sure there are examples where it would benefit me more, but that was the first thing that came to mind.
Interesting. Well, so no, I mean, since this is a family show, Matthew, what I'm going to say is I'd like to be on a masseuse table and in a hot tub at the same time. Like two different versions of me. Like that's where I would be. Or, in the hot tub and in the lounge chair by the pool. Because I would be the guy taking up the hot tub all the time, and so nobody else would want to get in, because let's face it, nobody wants to get in with the middle-aged man.
No.
Right. and good. And also if you leave your chair and you don't properly protect it, you don't put a book and a pair of sunglasses and flip-flops, or as we used to call them, thongs, on your chair. Don't leave your thongs on the chair now, folks. That would be inappropriate. But then they will steal your chair. So in this scenario, I am in both places that are high demand and nobody else can get to them. Yeah, that's where I would be. But hey, baseball game, totally good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm really regretting my answer now, but let's move on.
Anyway, today is Sunday, August 25th, as we record this podcast. Your San Francisco Giants went 3-3 this week, taking 2 out of 3 from the scrappy Chicago White Sox. Definitely not the worst team to ever strap them on. But Matthew, I did more research about this because I know we talked about this last week. I actually did a little bit more research about the Cleveland Spiders. And I actually knew this information, but had totally forgotten it. It turns out that the Cleveland Spiders were that bad because the people that owned the Cleveland Spiders also owned the St. Louis baseball team, which that year was just called the St. Louis baseball team. And later they would become the Cardinals. And so this is why the Cardinals are so crappy, and I hate them so much, is because they were born out of this sort of reality. They had the owners owned both teams, and so they just took all of the good players from the Spiders and they put them on St. Louis. And so then Major League Baseball made a rule that you couldn't own more than one team after that.
Probably a good rule.
So I would argue even more so that worst team in history is not a legitimately bad team because they were intentionally trying to make them bad. Well, they weren't intentionally trying to make them bad, but they definitely took all their best players, including Cy Young, and moved them to the other team. So I think that doesn't count. So I think this year's Chicago White Sox, if they get to 123 losses, they're the worst team in history. And therefore, the San Francisco Giants of 2024 could only go 2-1 against the worst team in baseball history.
Well, that's what happens when you have a mediocre team.
That's right. That's right.
Worst team.
That's right. And then the Mariners games happened.
I knew we were in trouble when they fired their manager right before they played us.
I mean, this was a team that was on the ropes, desperate. Right? This was a team that was up by 10 games in the National League West. And then... American League West. And then by the time the Giants showed up, or by the time that Scott Service was fired, we're 5 games back. And 7 games back in their wild card race. So, yeah, that's quite the swing. But I got to tell you, folks, I would take it. I would take having been 10 games up in first place at any point during this season. At any point.
I don't know. 'Cause the fall is hard.
Yeah, the fall is hard. I don't know. I just like to be in first place. That sounds cool. But then the Giants, the thing is, Matthew, the 2024 Giants are just so, you keep wanting to find explanations for why they're bad. I know I went on this whole thing about runners in scoring position a couple episodes ago. And the thing is, it's just yeah, that's true. They are really bad at that. But everything else, they're just average. They're just mediocre. And the most infuriating thing about this team is that part of being mediocre is sometimes you have good performances. But it seems like the Giants just can never put their multiple good performances together at the same time, right? The Giants finally hit some home runs. They put together a healthy lead. And then, Taylor comes out and he tailors, and Taylor's really good, right? But also Taylor's pitched a whole lot. And also, what other options did Bob Melvin have? Because, he'd already S-canned his best reliever to AAA, and so was a reliever short, let's face it, and so didn't have a lot of options once Taylor got into trouble. And that game was brutal, Matthew. I think that's the game that broke me. I mean, it's the latest game that broke me. It's the latest game.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know what to say because it's just one cluster after another.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow, you are.
I guess the part that frustrates me is that the Giants can't put a solid game together. They can't. Yeah. They can't have a game where the pitchers pitch good and the offense plays well. That doesn't happen. It's one or the other, not both.
That's right. And even when we have great games where great things happen, it's because the pitching is dominant and the hitting is just barely good enough to score a run or two to take advantage of that dominant pitching. And so even those great games aren't dominant wins. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And that's the 2024 Giants. So, folks, what are we doing today? Well, we're going to start a countdown, and I'm going to guess, Matthew, that this is our 10th to last episode during the actual baseball season for the San Francisco Giants. So I'm going to say we're starting with 10. There we go, folks. We have 10 more in-season episodes left. And the first thing that we're going to talk about today is, we're going to ask the question one more time, seriously. Are the Giants making the playoffs? And I think you can tell by the tone of the show where we stand. But we're gonna unpack it. We're gonna talk about exactly what kinds of similar things would happen that would demonstrate how unlikely it is that the Giants are going to make the playoffs. And then after that, we're just going to talk baseball. We're just going to talk baseball. Not whether or not the Giants are making the playoffs and not whether or not they made this mistake or that mistake. But we're just going to talk about baseball, including the return of the prodigal son, the best reliever in baseball, the second best San Francisco Giant to strap them on since 1994, Camilo Doval. But before we get to all that, he's my favorite player. What do you want from me? They demoted my favorite player.
Sing his praises, Ben. Sing
because
it.
He's a prima donna now. They give him lights.
Can I just ask the trivia question?
Yes, ask the trivia question.
All right. And normally I try to tie the trivia question into, something the Giants were doing, but F that. I'm so tired of trying to figure out how many times they've lost or how many games they're back. And anyway. So today's question is, what Giants player led the National League in at-bats in 2014?
I feel like this is a hard one to like intentionally get wrong without accidentally being right.
Yeah, you haven't pulled a good old Shioshi Shinjo in a while, you know?
Yeah, I haven't done, or a Rickard Fernida. I'm going to, Cody Ross.
Oh, okay.
Cody Ross.
Might have been a different year, but okay. We will.
Different year, only played for 2 months. It's wrong in so many ways. But,
there's a lot of reasons why the bet will be wrong at the end of this episode. Okay.
Enough with the banter. Let's talk cocktails.
All right. Yeah, let's do that.
What are you drinking, Matthew?
Well, Bob, I am drinking an original cocktail that I am calling a sunny day. And what's in a sunny day? Well, it's got 2 ounces of gin, preferably a London dry, but if you got use what you got. 3/4 ounces of chamomile-lavender syrup. I'll tell you about that in a second. A 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, 1/4 ounce of Lillet Blanc, 2 dashes of lavender bitters. You're going to put all those into a cocktail shaker with ice, and you're going to shake it for a good 10 to 15 seconds until well chilled and diluted. And then you're going to double strain that sucker into a chilled coupe glass, and you're going to garnish it with a lemon wheel on the edge of the glass, and it looks like a sun rising out of the glass. So that's what I'm drinking, is a sunny day. The chamomile lavender syrup, I went to the store and I bought a chamomile lavender herbal tea. And then I took 1 cup sugar, 1 cup water, and 3 tea bags, and I brought the mixture to just under a boil, to just a simmer, and then I turned it off, removed it from the heat, put the tea bags in there, and then let it steep, and then I got this nice, lovely chamomile lavender syrup. So that's all you got to do to make that, and that's what I'm drinking, Bob. A sunny day.
That's a tasty cocktail. What are you drinking, Ben?
Well, thank you for asking, Bob. That's very kind of you. Today, Bob, I am drinking Hank's Coupe. Hank's Coupe is based on a recipe that I found on liquor.com. What is in a Hank's Coupe? Well, it has 1 ounce of mezcal, 1 ounce of Pim's #1 cup. I don't know how to properly say the name of this thing. It says Pim's, and then below it says the #1 cup. I don't know. But then when people in England use it, they add sparkling lemon lime soda to it. And then they call that a cup? I don't know. It's all very confusing. Anyway, I have that. 1 ounce of that. And then 1 ounce of lime juice and 1 ounce of simple syrup. You combine all of those in a shaker with ice. You shake until chilled, and then you strain that into a coupe glass, and then you garnish it with whatever. I have garnished it with 3 brandied black cherries. Not Luxardos, because I was intrigued by this other brand. And that's what I'm drinking today. And I like this a lot. The original recipe of this is a little bit more tart, so, play around with the ratios if you're not into the sweet stuff. That's what I'm drinking. Hank's Coupe.
That's a tasty cocktail.
It's actually, I like this one quite a bit. I had to do something after. I couldn't let Pim's only cocktail be the 2024 Giants. That was rude. Talk about being rude and disrespectful. So, speaking
of the 2024 Giants, though, Ben,
do we?
Are they making the playoffs?
You know what, Matthew? There's a chance.
There is.
There is
you
a chance.
You are right. There is a chance, according to Fangraphs.
Yeah.
There is a 3% chance of the Giants making the playoffs. That got me thinking, though, Ben. I was like, well, what other things have a 3% chance?
Right.
Because, I want to put this in perspective. Like how likely is 3%?
Right.
So here's a few things. You are as likely to be audited by the IRS as the Giants are to make the playoffs.
Wow. To hear some people say that happens all the time, Matthew, it's totally doable.
Okay. All right. You are as likely to get a perfect score on the SAT as the Giants are.
I don't think I am as likely to do that. No, I think that's a flat 0.
Okay.
That's a flat 0. But
in general,
in one,
is,
you take a random person and make them take the test.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Fair.
And then this is a little bit morbid, but I think apropos. You have the same amount of chance of dying from a fall as the Giants do to make the playoffs.
Wow. Okay, but that would be any person of any age, because I imagine if you just contract this down to like old people, it's probably
it's probably
better.
Yeah.
It's probably
It's
better.
And then finally,
Wish we had those
chances.
Moving on.
And those of you who like to gamble or have a little fun with the dice, rolling a double six with 2 dice is also a 3% chance.
See, for some reason, Matthew, that seems like the most doable thing is rolling double sixes, right? But I guess that's like we are all used to rolling dice, and so we've rolled them a lot. And so, we've all rolled double sixes at some point in our life.
3 times in 100 out of 100. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm realizing now. Hey, Matthew, I don't know if you know this, but I play the Dungeons and the Dragons.
I do know that.
It's called a tabletop role-playing game. And in that game, we roll dice. And the biggest die that you use in D&D is a 20-sided die. It's very, very large, right? It's like a lot of sides on it, right?
Yeah.
You roll that, and you can't. That dice is the biggest die. Sorry, that die is the biggest die used in the game, and you can't even represent the Giants' chances here on that die. You would have to flip over to what we call the percentile die, which actually uses 2 dice. That's how bad the Giants' chances are. Matthew, a level 3 cleric has the same chance of having a god come down and grant them a favor in Dungeons and Dragons as the Giants have of making the playoffs. And I'm sure every listener now knows how unlikely that is.
They also know what a big nerd you are.
It's pretty big. It's a pretty big nerd. It's a geek, Matthew. Nerds are smart. Geeks are dumb.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Whatever.
I'm a geek.
Okay, so I have another question for you. So if you're, let's say you're getting laid off from your job, okay? And let's say, 5 weeks.
Sure.
Okay. Do you show up and but there's a 3% chance you'll save the job at the end? Okay. Just do you show up and try your hardest, or do you start just surfing the web all day?
Are you asking me if I mail it in?
That's what I'm asking. Yes.
I mean, honestly, Matthew, I got to tell you, it depends on the job. It depends on the job, and it depends on the company, right? Like, it really does.
If you're working for X, you're just watching.
I'd be like, I'm waiting for Elon to come in and make some sort of thing that's going to make it easy for my lawyers to sue him. And then while I get fired. No, I mean, I think, look, Matthew, there's a 3% chance of the Giants making the playoffs. That means there's a chance, right? Like 3 times out of 100, this is going to happen. Now, let's not talk about what Fangraphs and all the other projections say about their chances of winning the World Series. Because I realized, Matthew, it says 0.1%, but it's actually...
That's because they can't say 0.
That's right, because there is a chance, and so Fangraphs just rounds it up to 0.1. Over on Baseball Reference, they have a less than sign. And you remember that, Matthew? The less than greater than sign?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And so they include that. And it says less than 1.1% chance of winning the World Series. So...
Brutal.
It's brutal. And, but there is a chance. And so as long as there's a chance, a professional has to keep performing and keep doing their best. And so that's what I expect most of the Giants players to do. But you know what? Last year, I'm not sure that happened. I think the last 2 weeks of that season, as the wheels were falling off, things got a little squirrely at the end, right?
Yeah.
And so I assume that this year it's going to be a more serious clubhouse, and they're going to keep trying.
Okay, but I get that. They're professionals. But what I do see happening is that it's at some point, you can't just be like, oh, we still have a chance. I mean, you just gotta look reality in the eye. And when they do that, there are guys on this team that are playing hurt. Robbie Ray with his hamstring today. Oh. Does he rush back? No. Right? We heard that Logan Webb might be battling some niggles at this point. So do we shut him down to protect him? Those kind of things would be really telling that the Giants are just sitting around watching the internet for the next 5 weeks.
I think they have to. You make a good point. I think there is a point where you do have to start making those calculations as an organization. Right? Yeah. Because, look, Robbie Ray at this point is probably not going to opt out of his contract, right? And so as an organization, you know that he's going to come back next year. So you probably do want to take care of him. The same thing for Logan Webb. I heard that as well over there on Giants Talk. And so, that does really become a concern. And so I think you have to start to do that math. You can't do that math in August. I think you cannot do that calculation until it is September, and then really start to. I mean, it really has to be kind of obvious, right? And I don't think they're quite close enough for the organizations to start making that choices. As for each individual player, I think a lot of these guys still have a lot of things to play for beyond making the playoffs. I think the young guys, especially Ramos and Fitzgerald, need to, probably want to continue to demonstrate that they are not question marks. They're not maybes. They want to be, at the very least, penciled in or perhaps even written in ink as being the starting corner outfielder and shortstop next year. Ramos wants to start his run of breaking the curse of Barry Bonds. Fitzgerald wants to be the answer to who's going to be the shortstop of the future. Blake Snell is another one, right? Like, he had his first bad start since he's had this phenomenal run. I think he probably wants to show that he can carry that through for the rest of the month. He's got a lot to prove, right? He doesn't want to have a regression. He certainly doesn't want to appear injured, right?
Yeah.
And so he's going to keep, I think, trying to perform at a high level. So I think a lot of these guys have a lot to play for. Camilo Doval has a lot to play for. Right. And so I think a lot of these guys have a lot of incentives to keep performing at a high level. So I think it comes down to each individual player and the organization's view overall. And I don't think we're there yet. Nobody's going to pack it in yet, except us. We're packing it in. I'm like, I'm in the parking lot right now, Matthew. Like, I'm already pulling the car out into traffic, I'm saying, boy, I'm so glad we left. And I never leave a game early. And I'm already on the 101 or the Bay Bridge or whatever direction you drive, folks. I take part.
Yeah, you're already on the train back to the East Bay.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I'm on BART right now, and the game's not even over. Yeah.
Yeah, I alluded to it earlier. It's almost an annual rite of passage for Giants fans, right? You hope like heck for 120 plus games, and then somewhere between 120 and 150, you kind of realize that maybe the Giants aren't as good as you had hoped, right? And so this is I think Giants fan, if you're like a newer Giants fan, this is just something you have to get used to. Okay, that sometimes it comes sooner, sometimes it comes later, but at some point you realize that the Giants just aren't that good.
That's right.
And that's hard. It's a hard day in the year for me, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard day because you know me, Mr. Optimism, and I want to believe that they're going to turn it around, and I want to believe they're going to hit, and I want to believe that everyone's going to play their part, and then you watch games like this where they just fired their manager. They've dropped 15 games in the standings in like 3 months, and you're just like, oh, these guys are ready to be beaten, and then we can't even like we can't even beat teams that their biggest scoring threats are bases loaded walks and grounding into almost double plays. Just that's how hard it is to be a Giants fan right now. So
right. Well, I mean, they're a team that always seems like they're almost good, but they always have a way to demonstrate that they aren't. And it's not like one of these really bad teams. It's not like the Nationals, right? The Nationals who gave a game away to the Braves when C.J. Abrams made an error on Friday night that cost the Giants a game in the playoff standings. right? It's not like that bad, right? I mean, although the Giants have made a lot of mistakes on the base pass, but really, it's just sort of like those things where like they have the bullpen that's very, very good, but not 100%. They have a rotation that is quote unquote the best in baseball, but consistently can only go 4 or 5 innings, which puts a ton of pressure on the bullpen. You know, they have batters who are good enough to get on base and are like consistently perform at the same level as the rest of Major League Baseball. But then when they get the runners into the position that they want them in, they can't get them across the plate. And it's just like, it's just, and once you have seen that for 5 months, and we are 3 games away from 5 months, then it's kind of like you're kidding yourselves if you don't accept the fact that this team is just mediocre. And mediocre right now, thankfully, is not good enough to make the playoffs. We thought it might be, but it turns out it's not. And that's what this team is. They're just average. You know, I actually broke down in StatHead, which is Baseball Reference's stat thing, and I looked at the splits for the team overall for just for their hitting stats and compared them to the rest of Major League Baseball, how they were from month to month. And they're just always hovering around 100 on OPS plus, right? Which means they're just average. And it's the same thing for the pitching too, you know? And it's just a consistently average team. And the thing is that when you have higher expectations for your team, average feels bad. And that's why this team feels bad, is because we had such high expectations. We expected good and we got mediocre. And like it's hard to, like, you know, I don't know. What do you tell fans? How do you do it? Well, you eventually reach the point where you just realize that you're kidding yourself. And for us here on Giant Cocktails, that's 5 months. Well, for me, it was 4 months. And for Matthew, it's probably like 5.5. But, you know, whatever. Average it out.
You mentioned the best rotation in baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, the pitching staff in general this weekend was so underwhelming. I mean, I was looking, the Seattle Mariners on Friday drew 8 walks. Okay. The Giants drew 2. Okay. On Saturday, Seattle drew 9 walks.
Yeah.
The Giants drew 3. Okay. Now Sunday, they both had 4 walks. So there was a little bit more even, but just how, I don't know.
Well, here's the difference. You had literally the best rotation in baseball going against one of the more average or mediocre offenses. And then you had a pitching staff that's just not quite as good as Seattle's going against a equally bad offense. And that's the difference, I think, right? So what happened in the
3 1-run games? Yeah, that's the difference.
That's the difference, right? Like the Mariners, I think the Mariners and Giants are like evenly matched. And we saw close-fought games. And because of one bad inning by one guy, you know, the Giants lost the series. And, you know, as for the walks on Saturday, I mean, that's the Blake Snell of last year showed up, right? This year's Blake Snell, since the second half, you know, since he came back from his last stint on the IL, he hasn't been walking guys. Like, that's the difference.
Oh, no, he's been way more efficient with his pitching,
right.
For sure.
Well, yesterday, on Saturday, the old Blake Snell came back. And that's where a lot of those walks
although you know, he left the game throwing a no-hitter, so there's that.
Yeah, but they had scored 2 runs on 0 errors.
It was only the third inning. It was only the third inning. So.
I mean, that's actually, you know, think about that, Matthew. Robbie Ray, Blake Snell, between the 3 of them, had 3 games like that. Right? Robbie Ray in his first outing allowed a run to score because he hit 2 guys and walked 2 guys in his first inning back from injury. And then he did that again where he hit the first 2 batters of the game, I think, and then walked the next 2 and then gave up the grand slam. And then you have Blake Snell walking in 2 with no hits and no errors. So, I mean, that's how that happened. And that's ostensibly from two of your two Cy Young Award winners did that, Matthew. Most of those walks came from your Cy Young Award winners.
I know. That's crazy. Okay, well, before we move on, one last question, because you're an expert at this.
Yeah.
And so today, Robbie Ray left the game early because of a hamstring, whatever. We don't know how severe it is. We'll find out on Monday. But your athletic career ended with a hamstring injury.
That's correct.
That was the direct line from sports to D&D, was that hamstring injury. What advice would you give Robbie Ray?
Well, first of all, I would like to think that I was always going to end up at D&D. It takes an athletic guy to be a barbarian rogue. Hey, sneak attack with the finesse weapons, but using the strength stat, folks. Look it up. Look it up.
Oh, folks, I'm really sorry.
Huge DPS. It's one of the greatest loopholes. And you know what? The loophole is still there in the new books. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Oh, right. Robbie Ray's hammy. Oh, he's screwed. Here's the thing. Like, this muscle is so big and so powerful, it loves to injure itself once it's already been injured. My advice to him is don't come back too early. That's my advice. Because that's what happened to me. Now, granted, that was 20 years ago, and I severely injured mine. Mine was so bad that today they would perform surgery on it. But for the next 2 years, I tried to continue to be a track and field athlete, and I just kept injuring that hamstring over and over again. And I think that's because I just didn't give it the time that it needed to heal. Now, hopefully, and I think almost certainly, Ray's injury was minor. Mine was very severe. So I would recommend to not pitch for the rest of the season. That would be my advice.
I think that's what we're looking at. So maybe Fangraphs is a little optimistic on its projections. All right, let's stop talking about playoffs and let's just start talking about the Giants and some just things that come to mind about the Giants.
Okay.
It's not a lightning round, but just some hodgepodge of stuff.
Let's do it. Let's talk baseball.
All right. So Ben, the second best Giant of all time, just got back from his exile to the minor leagues. Yep. Do you think Camilo was taught a lesson?
Do I think Camilo was taught a lesson?
Because that seems like what they were trying to do. They were trying to teach that boy a lesson.
They were definitely trying to teach him a lesson. I think there is so much to talk about in this one that we could have made it its own segment entirely, but I don't think this is an in-season discussion to have. I think he received his lesson, right? Baggerly quoted him on X the other day, and he was saying, I think it was good that I was sent down, that I learned to not take things for granted, which is really interesting if you think about it, right? Because I think that happens to a lot of professional athletes, Matthew. And if you look at it like a kid like Doval, and you look at how old he was in 2021, and he became the closer for them in September. He became the closer for the team that won the most games in Giants history. And then was an all-star and led the National League in saves last year, right? And this is a guy who has never not succeeded. And in the Dominican Republic, I think most kids grow up dreaming of becoming a Major League Baseball player. And it happened for him. And he's never had anything bad happen to him. And he kind of was like, oh, I took it for granted. And I did hear Pavlovich say on Giants Talk that they were planning on having certain other people come talk to him. And I think it was just sort of like, hey, just to remind you that baseball is a results-oriented business. And if you don't get the results, they will throw you out like the trash. And I think that was a little bit what they wanted to do. It's weird to me that they did that at the same time while they're trying to make the playoffs. Yeah.
Because it certainly didn't make their team
No,
better,
it didn't. It made their team worse. And I think we had two games, the third game in the White Sox series and the first game in the Mariners series, where it sure would have been nice if they had had another guy. And do I think Camilo should have been the closer? Absolutely not. You and I thought he should have been removed from that role after coming back from the All-Star break.
Yeah.
And not because of I know a lot of people are talking about he's a prima donna and all this other sort of stuff. You know what? It doesn't matter if you're a prima donna if you're getting the results. Right.
right.
Nobody cares.
Whatever.
Literally nobody cares.
Well, he was Camilo Tranquilo or whatever when he was getting results.
That's right. And so, like, everybody, and again, I did hear some stuff that I think it really did come down to, like, they were asking him to make changes and he wasn't making them, which is,
yeah.
Do I think they could have sent that message without sending him down? Yes, I do. I think they could have told him, you're no longer the closer. You're now the first guy. And I think they could have just easily told him, and if you don't do what we're talking about, we will send you down.
Yeah.
I think they could have sent that message like that and then still had the ability to send him down. Although I do wonder if because I don't know what the rules are, Matthew. Like, do you have to be on the roster on the last day of August to qualify for the postseason? I don't remember how all that works. So maybe that factored into it a little, and they were thought, if this has to be what we do, then we want to have the window to be able to do it. But anyway, I think he was taught a lesson. I don't think he could have gone down there to, like, fix how long he, like, holding runners on and, like, throwing strikes. Like, I don't think suddenly those things are necessarily going to be better. I think what might change is his willingness to work on those things. Right? I will say this, though. They put him in quite the situation on his return. I mean, like, the season's on the line, buddy. This is it. Here you go. Here's the rock. Boy, we're glad you're back. Really sorry about that first and third in a one-run game thing. Here's the ball. And he looked, you know what? He looked Camilo-like. He's always a little bit crazy, but he got the job done. But you know what? That's kind of Giants tradition. Brian Wilson was like that. Rob Nen was like that. So, I don't know. I hope the message was received. Because if this turns into a Joey Bart situation, the ultimately losers are going to be the Giants here. Because Camilo Doval will go somewhere else and be successful.
Yeah. Okay, well, so my next question is, who's going to be the closer next year? And before you answer that question, let me read you Ryan Walker's stats over his last 5 games, okay? Just innings pitched and strikeouts. That's what I'm going to do, okay? So, let's see, 5 games ago, he had 1 inning pitched, 1 strikeout. Then his next game, he had 2 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts. Then the next inning, 1 inning pitched, 3 strikeouts. Then the next game he pitched, 2 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts. And then in this last game, 1 inning pitched, 2 strikeouts.
Well, look.
All right. So he has been dominant.
Yeah.
Dominant. And so, and I got to tell you, I like the fact that there's not like suddenly 3 guys on base before he gets an out. That as a fan, that gives me a lot more confidence in his ability to earn a save versus the second best Giant player of all time. So, but in your mind, who's the closer?
So you didn't like that World Series that we got in 2010? So you didn't like that? You didn't like that World Series? You didn't like Brian Wilson? You didn't like Brian Wilson? You didn't like him. You didn't. Matthew didn't like Brian Wilson, folks. Matthew didn't like torture baseball. Matthew didn't like the first World Series in San Francisco history because nobody did it like Brian Wilson, including Camilo Doval.
Yeah. Well, so would Wilson should he have been sent back to AAA?
Probably. If Bob Melvin was his manager, apparently he would have been. No, because that team was winning. I think that was ultimately what it was. Like, if this team was winning. And you had Camilo Doval with 2 blown, 5 blown saves is a lot, but only 2 losses out of those 5 blown saves? I don't think so. I don't think you send him down. But all that being said, who will be the closer next year? Matthew, I'm a big believer in, like, you don't have the closer role taken away from you. You lose it, right? You lose the closer role. Camilo Doval lost the closer role. And unfortunately for him, he has a very, very good teammate who now has that job and has done nothing to demonstrate that he shouldn't be the closer.
For the season, Ryan Walker, 89 strikeouts in 68 1/3 innings. His ERA plus is 198.
Yeah, no, Ryan Walker is going to be the closer for the rest of this season, and I think most certainly will start next season as the guy in that role. The only way Camilo gets that job back is if Walker implodes, which none of us want to see. Oh, and the only other way is injury. Like, no,
Injury,
Doval will never be the closer again for the San Francisco Giants as long as Ryan Walker keeps dealing. And that's just the way that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Who do you want? Who would you rather see in a crucial situation? Tyler Rogers or Camilo Doval?
Camilo Doval.
Thank you. Yeah.
Look, I like both of these guys. I like both of them. I do. I love them both, but yeah, it's...
Yeah, Tyler Rogers came back today and got in immediate trouble, but then got himself out of it. And I like it, man. He was so pissed. He was pumping fastballs at 83 today, man. I mean, he was... I'm going to go on. I've gone on record before. I understand Tyler Rogers' overall his effectiveness to get batters out, but when he's not right, he's really wrong. And even the thing about Tyler Rogers is that guys can just get these little dinky hits, like off the end of the bat.
How they do it.
And it's like he can't overpower anyone. And frankly, I think he could stand a little bit more, sliders to the face of a left-handed hitter. I think he should have just done more of that.
Just to scare him a little bit. Yeah, because 78 to the face still hurts. Yeah, I mean, like, Camilo can blow you away. Like, Tyler is not going to blow anybody away. And if somebody makes rough contact to Camilo, bad contact, it's going to be a sharp ground ball to a middle infielder. Right. And you're going to turn a double play if there's a runner on base. Yeah, like, if somebody makes weak contact against Tyler Rogers, I mean, that's an infield hit. Or it's a doinker, like that's what one of the hits was against him.
One of the 6 in a row?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of those. And that's what Tyler... the problem with Tyler Rogers is that you're rolling the dice, and sometimes you roll unexpected rolls 3 times in a row.
Yeah, you roll double sixes.
You roll double sixes sometimes. And sometimes you roll double sixes twice in a row. And that's the problem with Tyler. Like, I think that's why he can't be a closer. He can't, I don't even think he should really be an 8th inning guy.
No, I don't
And
either.
he should not be the guy that you bring in when there's dudes on base. That's when you bring in a Ryan Walker or a Camilo Doval. You need a strikeout guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, you mentioned that these guys are playing for something, and particularly you mentioned Tyler Fitzgerald and Lillet Ramos. Tyler Fitzgerald is now starting to get talked about in the Rookie of the Year race.
Yeah.
And because of Skeens has actually kind of started to come down to earth a little bit. And so I guess my question to you is, as a long suffering Giants fan that hasn't seen homegrown talent much as of late, do you feel that Tyler Fitzgerald and Lillet Ramos are for real?
I'm still uncertain about Tyler Fitzgerald. He has not been that great for the last week, but he has been decent for the last 2 weeks, which means like a week, not this week, but the previous 7 days, he was very good. So I think we're starting to see his first downturn. So I'm still not convinced. With Tyler Fitzgerald. I think we need to see him go through a slump and then either rebound, or we need to see him finish strong. So I think September will be very telling for Tyler Fitzgerald. Ramos, I'm a believer.
No?
Well, because I again, Matthew, I was playing around on StatHead, and I went through and I pulled up the monthly stats for every San Francisco Giant, and I said, show me all of the Giants who for each month had at least 45 plate appearances and had an OPS plus over 100 and I think it was 10. And he showed up every month that he has been on the team. He has been consistently good. And yes, I think his June was very strong, but every other month was in the teens or near the low 20s. And so he has been above average against the rest of Major League Baseball consistently every month since he was called up. And I think he's the real deal. And we've seen him even have his, ups and downs during that period of time. So I think Ramos is for real.
Yeah. Okay. I think Tyler Fitzgerald is interesting. You even look back his last 30 days. Sure, his average has dropped. He's hitting 268 for the last 30 days, but he's also hit 6 home runs during that time. So yeah. I think that especially for a middle infielder, you're not expecting that kind of production, and so I feel like he's proven himself. I would be surprised if he doesn't start the season as the starting shortstop next year. I think that he is the real deal. I don't think we're going to see a 300 hitter, every year, but I think he's got enough pop. I think, he kind of reminds me of, a Brandon Crawford type hitter, 260s with, some pop, and, there's nothing wrong with that. And he plays a pretty decent shortstop. So I think he is the real deal. I don't think he's going to be like the next Derek Jeter, but I think he's going to be an above average Major League Baseball player going forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not convinced yet. I'm not convinced yet, but I could see how he could be. Ramos has been over 110 in OPS plus. So that means he has been above average every month since he was called up. So in May, he had an OPS plus of 123. So he was 23% better than average. In June, he had an OPS plus of 160. So he was 60% better than average. And then in July and August, he has not been as good, but it's 113 and 114. So he's been 13% and 14% better than average at a minimum.
He's been a Yaz type player.
Yeah, well, yeah, but also with flashes of greatness, just like Yaz. I think less so this year, but
in his prime. When Yaz was
3 years ago. Yeah.
I think going back to both. I mean, Tyler Fitzgerald. The only thing I think that's holding him back is the strike zone. Controlling the strike zone. I mean, he does strike out a lot, so that's one that. And then actually, frankly, so does Lillet Ramos. I mean, I think both of them are young players who probably need to show a little bit more discipline on the strikeouts. But other than that, maybe that's something that they can learn as they mature.
I mean, or as it only hurts them. I mean, here I am talking about how Ramos is great. Fitzgerald shows up in 3 of these months. In April and March, he was 59% better than average. In July, he was 127% better than average. I mean, we all remember. We all know that. We all know that. We all saw that happen. Then in August, he's fallen off a ton. He's cratered. He's cratered, Matthew. Yeah. He's only 45% better than average in August.
Oh, God. Yeah, send him down.
So that's Tyler Fitzgerald for you. He's in the middle of his worst month so far this year, and he's only 45% better than average.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So speaking of players that maybe need a little more maturing or whatever, I just, lately, the Giants have gone through some catchers. We said goodbye to Skeeter Reitz. Yep. And then we brought up, I don't know, what's his name?
Current one? The current one? Nah.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't bring him up. We signed him.
Yeah, we signed him. So we're never going to see Blake Sabol again, are we?
No, because Blake Sable's not a catcher. And I'm stealing this.
I'm looking at his numbers right now. He had 32 at-bats in the majors this year, batting .313 with a .421 on base.
Okay, I'm totally stealing all of this from Pavlovich from Giants Talk.
Okay.
Because I listen to that occasionally. And by the way, super pessimistic over there, folks. So don't run over there if you're looking for an island of insanity. Even the journalist is pessimistic over there. He's a fan. But anyway, I'm stealing all of this from Pavlovich. Matthew, I don't know if you noticed, but our manager is a former catcher.
I did notice that.
Yeah. He probably has higher expectations about your catching ability when you're a catcher.
Okay.
And so he probably thinks outfielders don't make for good catchers. Okay. Point number 1. You are looking at Blake Sable's major league stats. Maybe you should look at his Sacramento stats.
Oh,
they are not good.
That would probably just. Yeah.
So I think Blake Sabol he's a replacement player at this point. We will never see him again except for injury things and things like that, and probably not at catcher. So I think he's competing against outfielders now with this regime.
Okay. All right, final question before we wrap things up. Will Grant McCray be a Giant outfielder next year?
Occasionally.
No, I mean like will he be like on one of the 5 to open up
No.
the year?
No. I mean, his defense is really nice. He does have speed. I mean, so he does have that working for him. He has somewhat of an old school manager, so maybe, but he would be literally the 26th guy. I think you have Jung-Hoo Lee. I think you have Ramos, and I think you have, who am I forgetting?
I think Conforto and Yaz will be gone.
So Wade Meckler.
Got 2 spots.
You got
right
Wade
there.
Meckler. You've got Matos.
Wait, when was the last time we saw Wade Meckler, though? You know, I don't know why people are thinking Wade Meckler is going to be the answer.
Because he was hurt all year. He's only played in like 15 games.
That doesn't. I don't care about that. Grant McCray's been playing, and he's playing great.
No, he is not. He's playing average.
He's batting .306, dude.
All right. Well, I mean, if you want to anoint a guy after a week of play, go look at his strikeout stats in the minor leagues.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's striking out almost.
No, I mean he's a
leagues
defensive guy with a little bit of pop and speed, and so I think he's a 26th guy.
All right.
If that, he's a 26th or a 27th guy. So yes, we will see Grant McCray a number of times next year.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it's time for today's trivia question and answer, Ben, because I think we've done all we can to put some dirt on this Giants team here. All right. The question was, what Giants player led the National League in at-bats in 2014? And you said Cody Ross, which we all know is the wrong World Series year.
Yep.
But the answer is former outfielder and current color analyst for the Giants, Hunter Pence, led the National League in at-bats with 560 ABs, and I think he had over 600 plate appearances that year. And then that was actually, and he played in 162 games, which was the second year in a row that he appeared in all 162 games. So Hunter Pence leading the league in at-bats for the Giants in 2014.
Cody Ross had 461 plate appearances for the Giants in 2011, when his OPS plus was 107. And get this, his OPS plus for the Giants was only 122, which is very good. It's good, right? But it's not like blow you out of the water.
It's when you
hit him. Not. Yeah, that's true. That's true. He did a lot in October, and those don't show up in these stats.
Travis Ishikawa.
That's
Morris.
right. I mean, Travis Ishikawa, one swing of the bat, man, and he's a legend.
A legend.
And the hitting coach in San Jose.
Is he really? All right. I like that. All right. Looking ahead. First of all, does it matter? Does it matter who we're playing next? Really. Not really. So we're playing the Brewers. I don't even want to look at their record. Their record's good, folks. They're a good team.
They're leading, I believe, the National League Central, Matthew. So, yeah, they're good.
Of course. Yeah, of course they are. Yeah. All right. Players to play for both teams. Andrew McCutchen.
Really?
Jeffrey Hacksaw Leonard.
Oh, one flap down.
And Ben's favorite all-time reliever, Julian
Shut
Tavares.
Up. Shut your mouth. If you rank all of my Giants, this guy's at the bottom.
I've never heard Ben give as much vitriol towards a reliever as Ben did to Julian Tavares.
I mean, I'm sure he's a fine man and all that stuff. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah, you guys know how I feel about Michael Conforto. It's nothing compared to Julian Tavares. Nothing.
Over 3 seasons and like 160 appearances, he had a 0.1 more.
Right. I mean, unlike Conforto, Tavares actually deserved my ire. Conforto's had a really good August, by the way. But still don't like him.
Yeah. All right, folks. I think that's a wrap on this edition of Giant Cocktails. Don't forget to follow us on the socials at the platform formerly known as Twitter and Instagram and Threads and Mastodon, and on YouTube with the username at Giant Cocktails. Also, don't forget to give us a review, a 5-star review on the platform or the podcast platform of your choice. It really does help the show. Ben, I guess it was good talking to you today.
You guess?
Just I'd like to talk about some fun stuff for once.
We talked about cocktails.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah. Actually, I really liked my cocktail. I'm just going to hang on to that.
We talked about Danny.
It's a sunny day, Ben. It's a sunny day.
We talked about Danny Jansen. He's going to play in the same game from 2 different teams, Matthew. The same at bat.
That's, folks, the Giants don't play on Monday. So you can just tune on in to watch Danny Jansen make history.
I think they should suspend the game twice more so he can pitch and be the umpire.
That's right. Okay. I like that. Let's do that. All right. Well, it's good chatting with you, Ben. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers, Matthew. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Giant Cocktails Podcast. Until next time, bottoms up.
$30 more games.
There's still part of me that thinks, but what if they do make the playoffs?
That's right. They're going to make the playoffs.
They're not. Shut up.